I'm not a huge coffee drinker, so I'll do chocolate milk instead. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to All Our Parts. Welcome to All Our Parts if you're new here. I'm your host, Jazzmyn, and today I am going to get into a little bit more of the business side of creating content, of being a therapist who shows up online. I've been working on more content pillars, which tip number one, you do not need to have content pillars right out the gate when you start creating content. Because if you're boxing yourself in when you don't even know what your audience wants you to talk about, you're limiting your creativity. You are limiting how you want to show up online by right out the gate saying, okay, these are my pillars. Social media is all about experimentation. It's literally about showing up first. And so do that. And then think about what your pillars are. Mini tangent, mini rant. Today's episode is about why I chose to start building a personal brand during grad school. I feel like that's a big risk. It's very ambitious, I will say, to have chosen to show up online, knowing that there is potential that I would be representing somebody else's practice. Someone might not even want their therapist to be online. But I am a generator. And when my body says yes to something, full send. So, podcasting was the first glimmer in my mind of how I wanted to show up online. Even though I wasn't someone who had an inkling of how to make a podcast, what I would talk about on this said podcast, I was like, I think I want to go into podcasting. And so I was in the 12th house free membership with Michelle Pelizon-Lipsitz, and Chelsea Rife was hosting her podcasting as a marketing tool workshop for free. And it was actually about podcasting as a way to not need to feed into the social media algorithm. Work smarter, not harder. And I was like, hell yeah, count me in. I'm in nobody's algorithm right now, but I'm interested. So signed up, and I was so enamored with how knowledgeable she is. And I loved that it was coming from somebody who was living a very non-traditional lifestyle, but I perceived her as very successful. She's a digital nomad, podcast coach. She does pitching. I was just in awe. I was like, oh my God, she's crushing it. And literally, it's not like the stereotypical box that it would typically be wrapped in. And so after that call, I was like, I am going to build a podcast. I'm going to hire her as my coach. Whoa. That's a big leap from somebody who literally does not even post on their personal Instagram. But working with her really called to me in a big way that I could not name at the time. And it was a really huge investment for somebody that had no long-term goal, no niche, no plan, just a dream. A pen and a dream is what I call it. So I applied to work with her, and I remember feeling so nervous and so anxious. First of all, I'm like, why would she work with me? I have nothing to really offer. I have no idea what I'm doing. And I do not know how this is going to be beneficial. And so I logged on. So much anxiety, so much self-doubt. But I was like, I really want to do this. And I worked with her on that for 6 months, building out all our parts. And with her within that container was where the name came from, where the vision began to take its own life. And that is when I also started my Instagram page. So this is back in 2023, early 2023. So I hadn't even started practicum yet. Crazy. And so I am pitching, I'm starting to think about podcasting. I start making this Instagram and I am like, I am not going to start posting publicly on Instagram. There was an immediate resistance that came up to showing up on Instagram. And at the same time, I felt my throat chakra just like ready to be used, ready to be accessed. I had something I really needed to say. And I feel like a lot of that was me healing a lot of the tension that I experienced in my family, where I would suppress a lot of what I was thinking, a lot of what I was saying. I was just getting to the tail end of some significant familial conflict that was exhausting. And I felt like I was ready to start being myself and showing up as myself. And part of that was sharing that journey publicly. And so I made the Instagram and my friends followed it, and I started tiptoeing around what a podcast would sound like. At first I was like, I want to do a podcast around Real Housewives, but that didn't resonate, at least not in a long-term capacity. And I recognized it was also going to be me hiding behind this fun interest, not sharing, and avoiding being perceived as someone who thinks they know something. And that is a much bigger belief, obviously, that I needed to unravel. Is why am I worried about being perceived as somebody that might have an inkling about something, that might have an idea about something, that is positioning themselves as somebody who knows something and is someone that people want to listen to? I feel my stomach turning just thinking about it. But I knew in my container with Chelsea, I was like, I am the next Glennon Doyle. What Glennon Doyle's got going on, I want to times 10 it. That's what I knew and felt in my spirit. And so Glennon Doyle, if you're listening to this, I'd love to have you on. I'd love to do a podcast swap because you are my inspiration for starting this journey in the first place. So thank you. Anyway, I started just toying with solo episodes. So thinking about my journey while in grad school, thinking about some of the uncoverings that was happening while I was in grad school. And then I would freak out when I went to post. And then of course I would not post the episode. And then I would come into my container with Chelsea and I'm like, oh my gosh, I did post. The podcast police are not coming after you. I was like, oh my God. And in my mind, I have failed. In my mind, I have disappointed her. I feel like she has potentially wasted her time. That's my own perfectionism coming out in this space. Oh, I didn't say this thing right. I didn't, maybe this doesn't come across the way that I intended to. I'm not meeting the metrics that I've set for myself within working with Chelsea. I just made this big investment. Oh my goodness, is this a big mistake? I'm going through all the things on top of just being a fucking grad student. And if you have been in a clinical graduate program, that is its own mental gymnastics that I will talk about at a later date. So I am putting myself through this rhythm of self-discovery, of unpacking limiting beliefs, of sitting with the deep shame I feel about myself. And I'm like, there's no way I'm going to be able to show up online. I'm frozen. The thought of even speaking a word out online froze me. And that is what motivated me to keep going, to keep showing up and hoping it resonated. And so a lot of my earlier posts, I'm like, okay, if I'm going to start posting, was my plant journey. It was safe. It wasn't me. It was allowing me to be reflective without putting myself out there. And of course, like, who's going to follow a plant journey if you don't know the person? So then I started doing quotes, memes, still really trying to keep this far removed from myself. And then I was like, okay, I want to start pitching guests. And so the first guest that I ever pitched to be on All Our Parts was Lauren Larkin. Iconic queen that she is. I was like, I love everything that you're embodying. I love what you're doing, and I would love to have you on. And she sent me the most thoughtful response, and I was like, oh my gosh, maybe I can do this. And maybe she knows, maybe she doesn't know, but like, her saying yes to me gave me the permission to keep going and keep dreaming. It gave me the permission that maybe I do have something important to share. Maybe I can do this. Maybe I am worth listening to. And there are people who want to talk to me. There are people who maybe even see a glimmer of what I'm trying to build or want to be a part of it. And at the time, I had 60 followers on TikTok. Oh my gosh, I barely posted on TikTok. But this person that I really look up to, that I really admire, said yes to me. And so if that is the case, then I believe that other people will say yes to me in the future. And so I recorded with her, and I sat on that episode for maybe a year. Oops. Because I was so scared, because she asked me questions and it was going to require me to self-disclose stuff about me that it wasn't that I wasn't ready to share, but it was really vulnerable for me at the time. I was like, oh my God. She asked me if I'm in a relationship, and she asked me like how I show up in session. And so I was very scared to post the episode. So I did some solo episodes and then eventually posted her episode a year ago. And I so appreciate her patience and thoughtfulness, and even grateful to still have her in my life as someone that I get to look up to, aspire to be. And so internship is starting to wrap up. We're starting to hit like the career aspect of things. Okay, what's next? And I was always in the space of what is after grad school, because the silo that grad school was, I was not enjoying it anymore. I was like, get me the fuck out of here. I'm going to go get a medical letter that says I'm done. I had met my hours. I was ready to go. And so it was so exciting for me to think about what was next. I knew in Maryland that you could function as your own business entity. So some of the first things I did was apply for my LLC. But I was like, I guess I'm going to have to market myself. I guess I'm going to have to get on Instagram seriously. And so I started recording myself while I was walking around the park. People say, Jazzmyn, like, you're able to talk to the camera so well. How do you do it? I practiced. I literally would go to the park and make these long, drawn-out videos, like 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And then I would go to the clinic and show the supervisor that I was working with there. I was like, look, I recorded this video. I'm going to post it on Instagram. And she would like giggle at me. She's like, okay, girl, you do you. She was always, though, like, she saw the vision, and she knew one of the things that I struggled with was me getting out of my own head, me getting out of my own way. And I would also record sitting in the back of my trunk. For me, that felt like the most hidden place I could record in the car, and now I realize that just looks creepy with someone's trunk door open and someone sitting in the back talking on their phone like they don't have anywhere to go. I acknowledge that, but it worked. It helped me. It helped me get over my fear of talking to the camera and starting to think about what storytelling looks like for me. And I was like, okay, Steph, that was my supervisor's name, I'm gonna post this on Instagram. Oh, look, I got like 100 people following me now. Oh, look, I've got like 110. I was always like so excited for that growth. I had no idea where I was going to work. I had no idea who was going to supervise me, but I'm trusting this knowing. I am trusting my intuition to keep going and know that it will all work out, even when it looked like it wasn't going to, even when I had no fucking clue and I'm like, why am I doing this? Even on some really hard days where I would just stop posting altogether. It took a long time for me to learn how to be consistent and what it meant showing up on good days, bad days, and in between days. But my program director, who is very important both in my personal and professional life, connected me with my now supervisor, who I literally talk about all the time, who you all have heard from on the podcast, to supervise me. And I was very much, I had the vision of, okay, I'm building my practice out in Maryland. I need contract like supervision. It wasn't really until last summer where I was like, I'm going to take, so summer 2024, I'm going to start taking this shit really seriously. I'm going to post. I'm going to just figure it out. And even if I was doing it scared, which a lot of the time I was, I'm still going to show up. I'm still going to say something. Maybe do a little dance. Maybe post a little carousel post. I'm going to show up and not know. I'm going to show up and mess up or look silly. I remember I was telling someone, I was like, yeah, I think I'm just going to start my own like practice and contract a supervisor out. And she was like, wow, you must really believe in yourself. And it wasn't like, yes, slay girl boss. It was like, wow, like you're that arrogant that you would do that? And I remember just being taken aback by her response. And I know she was well-intentioned when she said it to me, but I was like, yeah, I do. I believe in myself enough to take this chance, to make this choice, and to see what happens, to see what comes out of showing up. And so part of then showing up regularly was the podcast. And so I was posting bi-weekly. And then every time I got the nudge to shift something, I shifted it. And then I got the nudge to post weekly. Now I'm in the cadence of posting twice a week. And I recognize as I'm retelling this aspect of my journey, so much of it, it wasn't waiting for permission for someone to tell me that this was the right thing to do. I didn't wait for a course to tell me, aside from the one I mentioned earlier, that building a personal brand was going to be the best choice I ever make. I didn't wait for someone I was working for to give me the okay to show up online, because I believed that my career was meant for something more. Because I also knew I would get really bored with just being a therapist. I love being a therapist. I love the clinical work. But I think part of burnout is honestly like therapists have to build their own career growth. And I'm going to do a separate episode on this as I've been sitting on this idea. But it's not in the traditional sense where you join corporate, you start at a certain level, and then you get to grow within a company. There's obvious growth or tiers that you can join. Being a therapist can be a very stagnant career in finances, status-wise, what you're able to do. It can be stagnant if you let it be stagnant. But therapists have to tap into some sort of entrepreneurial muscle if they want to have their own career grow. I did not have that muscle when I started my pages, but I knew, I was like, okay, I want something that's going to sustain me. I want something that's going to grow with me. Podcasting and social media were always that thing. And so my first iteration of my socials was my business name, Unilome Wellness LLC. Why I gave it that name is I have a lotus tattoo on my wrist. I'm pointing to it if you can see it. And I believe that healing happens not only in the mundane, but in the really messy parts of our stories. And so lotus flowers grow swamp, dirty, muddy waters and are still looked at as beautiful and radiant. And I believe that we as people are also that as well. And so I showed up online as that, and hiding behind that did give me the comfort to start building my platform. And then on a whim, rebranded everything. And I will say that rebrand really gave me some momentum to take it to the next level. Again, all of these choices have come from me trusting that it's going to work out, trusting that I am headed in the right direction and I just need to keep going. I have a wonderful supervisor and someone that I hope to grow with for a long time, personally, professionally. I love the community that I'm building and want to continue building. And I love what the space has become. And I look at it right now and I'm like, but I think I can take it to the next level. I'm ready. But I built a personal brand because I wanted something that was going to last the test of time. And that's the only thing I believe to be true. A Psychology Today profile was not going to last the test of time. Being a version of myself under someone else's practice was not going to last the test of time. Getting people to meet me at different iterations of myself, get to watch my journey, who get to grow with me. I hope that I'm embodying what I hope for my clients. And that growth happens even when we don't know. Growth happens when it's fucking hard, when it's scary, when you are literally throwing spaghetti on the wall and hoping that it sticks. It's throwing a line in the water and hoping that a fish catches it. It is the hope, the belief, that nudge that you're getting from your inner guide, your higher power, that it's leading you in the right direction. And that can feel really scary because this field has created a very clear picture of the trajectory you're supposed to go in. You're supposed to work in an agency group setting for 2 or 3 years, and then you're supposed to sit in your private practice setting. And that can work. It works for so many. It has worked for so many people up until this point. But now we're talking more about burnout. We're talking more about building sustainable careers. And part of sustainability is authenticity. But it is a privilege to be authentic in your work. And I knew that I was going to have to work my ass off and really feel alone sometimes, really not mesh well maybe with somebody in order to work in alignment with what I value, what I believe, what I hope to attain. But building a personal brand, I hope that in whatever iterations my career takes, this gets to continue to evolve. I don't need to take a website down. I can just post a different video, start connecting with a different community. I get to grow with it. And that is what has kept this work feeling so exciting, is seeing growth in the clinical space as a therapist and as a business owner and as someone who shows up online and wants to support other wellness professionals in showing up online. Because it has given me a community of people who see and support me. It has connected me with people who are such permanent fixtures in my day, who are also evolving and watching themselves change and sitting in that discomfort and not knowing. And it just such a rewarding space to be in. And even when I was scared, even when I felt, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what money is going to come in. Like, I'm having all the fear, all the anxiety. I don't know what this looks like. That's okay. I stayed really present and just made one choice. And then I made the next choice. And then I made the next choice. Then I started pitching the next person. It is just about unwavering self-trust. It is about believing that your voice deserves to be heard, and the people who resonate with it will gravitate to it and seek you out. It has been the best, longest, most challenging aspect of self-growth, self-love that I've experienced, and I'm so grateful for those mentioned and not mentioned who have really supported my growth in this space. But yeah, that is why I built a personal brand. That's why I believe in experimentation. That's why I believe in showing up even when you don't feel like showing up. Would love to hear your thoughts. You can find me at Healing with Jazzmyn on all platforms. Like I said, I have episodes dropping every Tuesday, guest episodes dropping on Friday. I'm so excited for my guest this week. She is a friend. She has been here before. I talk with my friend Becca Post about growth, about evolution, about changing with your business and your relationships, etc. You don't want to miss it. If you're vibing with the show, I ask you to please leave a rating, leave a comment so that the show can reach broader audiences and I can reach more people. I appreciate you, and I will see you on Friday.